Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, enough of that. That's the pre-show. We're not doing the pre-show. We're not doing the after show. This
We're doing
is
the show.
Thursday, and something a little different. John, at some point, and I've alluded to, and I think I pointed out earlier, I think on social media, one of the social media shows last week, not this week,
Mhm.
but last week,
Mhm.
I went through a campaign that I ran for some fractional CMOs who are
Yes.
by far the fastest growing part of my business, right? And we looked at some tools and how it was done through LinkedIn, the response rate, the conversion rate, and all that kind of stuff. And that led to a lot of meetings and to me being on a podcast, the Virtual CMO, a
Mhm.
couple weeks ago. And being on the Virtual CMO and also the touch point of reaching out to people resulted in invitations to speak to larger groups, not just individuals. And one of those larger groups is a company called Growth, like fantastic name, by a really good website. And
just
I'll
to
be talking to them. It's now. I should explain. The fractional CMO market is a little different, or let's call it a marketplace. The marketplace is a little different than you might expect, and I think we may have touched on this before. Most fractional CMOs are independent, like completely independent. They're one-person companies. They're like, you can think of them as freelancers or solopreneurs or individual contributors, or however you want to think about it. And they may have like an assistant or something helping them out, or a VA. And they're doing their marketing on their own. They're doing their sales on their own. And what they, to put in sales terms, what they kill, they eat. And then there are these collective companies that may have anywhere from like 4 to 100 CMOs. And it works almost kind of like a Remax model, right? Like, you understand that when your local Remax realtor is not an employee of Remax. They're part of a group that shares advertising costs and back-end costs and marketing and signs, and also they benefit from brand recognition.
Hey, just to break in for a second.
Yeah. Oh, there's Dr. V.
Yes.
He's not even supposed to be here. So
I distributed
the
many
CMOs
places.
are in these collectives, kind of like Remax, and I'm talking to over the next couple of months, probably definitely several of these collectives. But one of them is going to be on Monday, this coming Monday.
Oh, cool.
And as I'm, and it's all around sort of helping them reframe how they approach getting customers. And so a little bit on positioning and some of the stuff. And I figured, you know what? I don't have like the whole thing ironed out yet, but I have all the main pieces. And I bet it would be interesting for folks to get an idea of what's being said in these sort of, because, we're not recording this meeting. This one, of course, this video is recorded because it's on LinkedIn and stuff. But the talk I give to this company, no one's going to record that as far as I know. So it will never be seen again. But it makes sense to go over the big concepts. And just sort of, some of these are sort of a refresher, and some of these are like new ideas. And so I'm going to go ahead. You guys can see the positioning thing on the screen, right?
I can. Yeah.
What? Where? How? Why?
Exactly.
So let's see here. Let me go over that so I can look at it and while I'm going. And it is moving, right?
It is.
Yeah.
It's
okay.
It's a little
So
jiggly.
let's talk about positioning. Positioning breaks down into, I actually finished the section 4 cohort course on positioning with April Dunford. It wasn't really appropriate or applicable to my market. So, but the concepts are there. Positioning is pretty much almost the first thing you need to understand from a marketing point of view before you do anything else. So you need to know who you are and who the customer is and where that overlap. There's a circle for you and a circle for them, and where do they overlap in a Venn diagram kind of thing, right? Now, small companies that don't have marketing departments, companies like, freelancers and individual contributors and solopreneurs and most fractional CMOs and even larger collectives of CMOs, right? They, some of them position, or some people in some companies position according to where. So they're limited to like a metro area, for instance, or a state or a country, or only on planet Earth. They do nothing in space. Technically that could be a positioning. And also they may choose a particular industry. like healthcare, right? Or manufacturing, or they may choose a vertical inside an industry. So not just healthcare, but radiologists, or hospitals with fewer than 500 employees, or companies in any market, SaaS company, whatever, between $5 and $50 million in revenue. And so that's one way to position yourself. It's one way to define your niche. It's also the easiest, the most common, and the hardest to get any kind of extra value or extra margin or profit out of. So then the next one is the what, right? And it's like what you do. So you focus on building out a marketing team that's never existed. You focus on, there are fractional CMOs, for instance, who specialize in sort of establishing the social media outreach, the advertising buys, all of that sort of infrastructure that a large-ish or growing marketing team might have. That is not in place yet. They might focus on, some of them focus on just launching new products. Some of them focus on taking sort of moribund brands, right? Brands that have been around forever and sort of breathing new, almost half forgotten. They just, they're on life support, but they still continue to chug along, like bringing those back to life.
CPR branding.
And there you go. That's a good name for it. CPR, fractional CMOs, right?
Fractional CMO.
Yeah, that's very true.
And so it's like what they can deliver for you, like what they specialize in as a deliverable or skill set. There's a very small niche specialization for the why. You almost never see this outside of social causes or nonprofits, but anytime you go to, and we've seen some of these before, and I've pointed them out in our website Wednesday sessions. The why people, these are the ones that have some sort of manifesto statement on their website. Like, we believe that all people, see, I can't even say it without sounding sarcastic. And I'm not trying to sound sarcastic or condescending. It's just, it's a fact. It's a niche. There's nothing wrong with it. Like, if it works for you, I have no problem with anything that works for anybody. But it essentially, like, we believe in X, and therefore we help Y do Z.
We believe humans have hearts. This is why we keep them pumping.
Right. Now, the problem with a why is that the person who eventually signs on or even like invites you in to talk, they have to already be familiar enough with the story that you've plugged into so that they feel that they're on the same, page that you're on. So you don't get a circuit board manufacturer hiring a marketing company or a CMO who has a why niche, right? If the why niche is, making sure that people around the world have fresh drinking water, we're not on the same page.
Well, yeah, you're not in the NGO world.
Right. We're not in the NGO. We're not in the nonprofit. We're not in the social cause. We're not in the whatever. But even if your why niche, you only do B2B, but, it's something that's just not there. They have to already come to the table with an appreciation for your story and see a place for them in it before they would talk to someone like you. Now, on the one hand, like a lot of niches, a lot of specializations, if there's a long road to get there in the first place, most of the people that you might ever sign on as customers for any reason are never going to sign on or even talk to you. But B, it's a barrier to entry, right? If you've spent the last 10 years helping NGOs provide fresh water around the world, then you have very few competitors.
Right.
And so for the people who can get over the barrier, there's no one else really around that you need to worry about. You're not shoulder to shoulder, in a thick market with competitors. You can just here's me. I'm the one who does this, right?
I'm drops without borders.
Yeah. And finally, there's the how. So it's not where you operate or what vertical or industry you're in, and it's certainly not a why, right? And it's partly the what, but the how is the only one of these that requires marketing imagination, because the how is, we've talked about it before. The how is the horse lady story. Right. So for if there is anyone who's ever watched any of our videos and has never heard the horse lady story, in a nutshell, You go to look for a therapist, your first ever therapist, right? Just whatever. We just pick a topic. It could be welders. It doesn't matter. So in this case, it's a therapist. And you go online, and wherever you should go online, you go to LinkedIn, you go to Facebook, you go to Google, wherever, right? You go to therapy.org or whatever it's called. And you look at, and you sort of, land on 5 different therapists. And the next day, your best friend or your mom or your spouse, whatever, says, so like, how's the search going for a therapist? Do you feel you're any closer to a decision? Like, who have you seen so far? And what you'll often do is you said, yeah, so I looked at 5, 4 of them, like we always like to categorize and split, right? So 4 of them end up get amalgamated into a kind of a single therapist, one generic kind of therapist that you go and you see. And therapy is very generic, for many legal and ethical and licensing and board certification kind of reasons. So there's these 4 ladies, and you go and you sit down and they ask you questions and you talk to them. And then there was the horse lady. And instead of an office, you go out to this nearby farm, and she says she's going to put you on this really sweet, gentle horse. And together you're going to ride down this path. And she asks questions and you talk, right? It is literally the same service being delivered. But the horse lady is remembered on her own. It's a how. It's not what she delivers. She delivers the same thing as everyone else. And almost all of us deliver the same thing as someone else. But it's the how. She gets to stand apart and win a disproportionate share of the potential client base because her how is different and memorable. And that's why I say the how is the only one that requires much marketing imagination, because you need to, at least, it's part of my job when I'm working through these workshops with folks. It's my job to figure out the horse lady story for their business.
Yeah.
So as far as positioning and niches go, the how is the cheapest one because it just requires mental effort and some time talking about your business. It can be the hardest one if you don't have a background in figuring out how to make something every day sound new again. Do you guys know who Jason Zweig is? Jason Zweig is a columnist for the Wall Street Journal. I'm not even sure he's still there. But he writes a weekly personal finance kind of column.
Gotcha.
And he wants, the basics of personal finance are pretty much, right? Make more money, save more money, invest wisely. And I once saw him describe his job as, my job is to write the same column 52 weeks a year, but make it sound different. I mean, really, what is a dieting columnist or writer, weekly column do? They're just telling you the same thing over and over, but in slightly different ways. How is sort of like that, right? All of this stuff is sort of like that. The how is figuring out how to say it in a different way so that you stand apart long enough to get you to the meeting and do your pitch. So anyway, we'll be talking with them a little bit about positioning. And then, John, you and I were talking earlier about this. So you can, on the left, and you can see there's a double-sided arrow in the middle, right? And at the top is sales, and the bottom is marketing, the white arrow. And what happens is you can, the big red box in the lower left, the danger when you're doing your own marketing, or the danger when you're in marketing, is that you think that the announcement is marketing. Like, it's all of marketing. The announcement is basically you saying to as many different people in as many different places in as many different ways as you can, we exist. We exist. We have this product. We exist. And every other competitor is also yelling, we exist. And they're trying to interrupt people and saying, we exist. And most of the advertising you see all day, every day is just some company saying some version of we exist, or this service exists, or this product exists, right? And then what you're trying to do with like really creative marketing is get to the second stage, which is the connection, like creating some kind of affinity or owning a box. So for instance, anytime you hear about like categorization or category killers or category owners or category kings and queens, they're talking about the yellow box, right? Establishing some kind of connection. And I don't mean necessarily an emotional connection with the people or person or company that you're targeting. I mean, they connect you to something in their world. When they think of X, they think of you. That's really what you're trying to do with the connection. And then the shared imperative really comes down to, we might as well move over to the right-hand side, right? So the shared imperative is selling. That's a person has convinced one or more other persons that if we move forward together, a positive future can be reached. But we need to do something about this negative present to get to the positive future. And marketing doesn't usually get you there. Usually that comes down to sales. But a lot of people, you can have a marketing, especially if you're like a single person kind of business, you can have a marketing oriented business, like revenue approach, or you can have a sales oriented revenue approach. If it's just one or two people in the company, you will rarely try to do both at the same time because it's just, you don't have the resourcing for that.
Right.
Now, there's nothing wrong with either approach. And a lot of it comes down to what you sell. But if you're a fractional CMO, then you have to pay attention to, you're in a particularly difficult situation if you're a fractional CMO, because just like a graphic artist or a copywriter, you're not judged just on the work you've done and the work that you can convince them you can do. You're judged on the actual messaging that got you to any of those points. Because if a fractional CMO's own marketing is junk, it's very hard for a prospect to think that your marketing to sell yourself is crappy, but what you do for us is going to be fantastic. Right?
It's like a social media, like a
Say
social media manager whose social media presence sucks.
Right. Or a copywriter who does outreach and like their copy is so boring that no one wants to, even go to the next step with them. Well, that person, you're judged on the actual mechanism you used to reach that person in the first place. So the fractional CMOs are in a really tough spot because they basically, unlike most businesses, they basically have to be very red box heavy, but also very green box heavy. And so what I'll be talking to those folks about is on the red box side, you need a mechanism, ideally one that's as automated as possible, that will reach out to as many people as makes sense to. And you can almost work it backwards and say, how many people need to know I exist so that I can make enough money to be happy with the revenue I'm making? Right? It's probably not 50. It's probably closer to 1,000. Because only a tiny, tiny percentage of them will ever end up in the green box with you, where you get a chance to pitch with them and talk about getting out of the negative future, negative present, and into the positive future, or avoiding a negative future. So because they don't have the resources, they don't have their own salespeople, they don't have their own marketing department, they are the marketing department. Anyone who's sort of in a very tiny or single person business, they are the marketing department and the sales department and every other department. Then they need to automate the I exist part of this funnel as quickly as possible and just let it run every day. And then from the percentage, whatever that is, for me on that campaign I showed you guys last week, I think it ended up being about 35%. So of the 35% who, reach back, then those people are where we're making the connection and then ultimately moving them into the shared imperative. But and of course, if you think about it, you talk to very few people in the green box, but every one of them is potentially very, very valuable revenue-wise. Whereas you talk to a lot of people in the red box, the I exist phase, and any single one of them is potentially worthless to you as a business. And so it's very much, you want to automate and get your costs down in the red box as much as possible so that you can focus and nurture the people that are moving into the green box. Does that make sense?
That's so true. And that's the easiest place to do it.
Yeah.
And it's not hard.
No, it's not hard. The tools today are fantastic. There's a little horse lady thing we'll get into later.
Yeah.
Then we talk about the 3 levels of marketing. And we go over this, or messaging rather, and we go over this all the time. We did it yesterday on Website Wednesday, right? For, what was that called? Petrie Travel?
Petrie Travel Adventure,
right?
Or something like that.
Everything they had on their website was informational. This is who we are and what we do. And we did as much as we could. We moved a little bit into inspirational, right? Which is where, which is usually the highest level that B2B companies can go. But then because they're in travel, they had a rare opportunity to move into transformational. Like you could be a new person with new friends and new memories and new life experience.
And new fingerprints.
right? But you see it everywhere. Everyone, like in their social media profiles, in their outbound, in their they only think about themselves and what they want to say and how they should say it, and they don't think about what anyone would want to hear, what they might remember, or what would keep their attention. And so almost all of them, if you go back to the red box, almost all of them stick to the I exist, I exist, I exist, I exist. If you ever see that movie Finding Nemo, all the seagulls, all they ever say is mine, mine, mine.
Right.
And that's all they say, right? That's all this sounds like to the market. I exist, I exist, I exist too. I'm over here and I exist. I exist. We also exist. That's all it's like.
So don't name your company Seagull Marketing.
Definitely not.
Okay.
And then we go to tone. And I'm not sure we've spent really much time on this one compared to the other topics. But from a marketing and sales perspective, this is the spectrum, right? And the blue area is clearly the tiniest, but it's where you need to live. Now, you never want to be aggressive, obviously, because that'll turn people off instantly, and it should. If you ever get contacted on LinkedIn, then they immediately do a hard pitch. That's aggressive. And I don't know anybody who is successful with that. There must be somebody, because everyone keeps trying to do it.
They keep trying to do it to me. So.
But I instantly mute and kill those people, right? I kill those threads. No, you're out right away. Now, of course, you don't want to be on the other side, which is selling from your heels. And selling from your heels is a concept where you're sort of leaning back away from the person you're trying to influence. And it never works. Nobody's ever persuaded by someone who's trying to increase the amount of space between you and them. And in outreach, this ends up in messages like, so this might not be for you. And, a lot of people, it's really not well suited to them either. But if you happen to be interested, then I wouldn't mind talking to you about X and Y.
Maybe
someday. The example I used to give for this is, imagine that your friend comes in and hands you, they have 2 cans of Coke, right? And they give you one and they say, here, I got you a Coke. And then without ever breaking eye contact, they start backing away from you, right? And there's no way you're opening that can of Coke. It's not going to happen because it'll explode. They shook it up. That's what selling from your heels feels like to the prospect. So don't do that. But then what you find, especially in B2B with a lot of technical kind of companies, manufacturing and software and tech companies, is sort of the neutral or objective. We're like, yeah, I can see both sides of this, or every aspect of this is nuanced. And so I can see where you might disagree. In fact, I'm going to prevent any conflict or disagreement by letting you know up front that there are multiple options that you could go, and we're just one of them. Okay. The problem with that is there's nothing for a listener or viewer or prospect's mind to hook onto, right? They leave the meeting and they have no effing idea if they're any closer to making a decision or even what the real criteria for it should be. But a lot of companies do the neutral or objective, especially, like I said, in tech, engineering heavy or manufacturing heavy kind of stuff. And then there's assertive, and assertive is the sweet spot. Assertive is simply this. This is true, and I stand on it.
So did I. Especially with no nod effect.
So there you go. That's all it is. This is true, and I stand on it. It's simple declarative sentences.
No, it has. That's not true.
Hard to get people to do it. Especially since I do mostly in B2B, it's very hard to get people to say something in their marketing and actually stick on it. Because, they're worried about legal, they're worried about, standing apart, they're worried about by either overtly or implicitly, they're bashing a competitor. They're not. If you have a skilled enough writer, that'll never happen. But there you go. And then I think this is the last slide. No, yeah, second last slide. So then the last part is sort of putting all that together. You need to be everywhere that they are, and you need to be sort of you on your best day. I read this book once. Do you know who Tina Fey is?
Of course.
So Tina Fey, for anyone who doesn't know, she was at one point the head writer on SNL, and then they had a show for several years called 30 Rock. And her autobiography is really interesting. And one of the things she talks about is sort of women and being in sort of like magazines and on the cover and stuff, and all of the photoshopping and stuff that goes on to make people more attractive. And she has this line that really comes out. She says, the only really acceptable but still truthful Photoshop editing on for when people are taking photos of you to put in media is as long as it looks like you on your best day in your best lighting, that's as far as it needs to go. Making you thinner, making your cheekbones more pronounced, changing your skin tone, all that stuff is just wrong. But you in the best lighting on your best day, that's as far as photoshopping should go. And your marketing should look like you want to be everywhere that your prospects are likely to be. And if that's LinkedIn, and if that's your own website, and if that's whatever, then you go there. If they're listening to podcasts, get on those podcasts, right? And in all instances, it should be you on your best day. This goes back to being assertive, right? It's you being somebody that people understand has a position, and if they agree with the position, then they should get closer to you. And finally, you're just trying to thread all the needles at once. We don't need that. So there's the last one, right? Really, not this is the last one for this video, but essentially you're trying to choose a horse lady story that works for you and your market that you can assertively talk about with inspirational content. And you want to be you need to be doing the I exist marketing / selling. You need to do the we're in the same group, like, they have a connection, and then we'll accomplish X together. That's what you're trying to build. And you just stack it up like Legos. Make the Lego and then stack the Legos. And there's your marketing. So that's what I'll be talking about for these guys. And I'll probably turn it into a video.
It'd be a good idea.
I like stacking Legos.
There we go.
Make Lego horses. Well,
so they're
fractional CMOs, because they're just part of a CMO.
And I guess we should talk about the positioning. I have a positioning workshop, and what we're going to do, Dr. B, we finally picked a date. So the date will be the first Thursday of wait, is it the first Thursday? It'll be it's Thursday, the week of
the 8th?
Labor Day.
Is that September 8th?
7th.
Yeah.
7th. That's it. Okay, yeah, we did talk about 7th yesterday.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we talked about like the Tuesday, Wednesday, but we'll do it on the Thursday. And I expect this to run about 90 minutes. The positioning workshop is 20 plus questions that I run clients through. And through that, we get to sort of build their the how versus the where, or the what, or the why kind of positioning, and then sort of the story around that and their angle and that whole thing. And so we'll be doing that. Now, of course, it won't be one-to-one like the actual workshops are. And it will
one-to-many,
and so people are welcome to follow along and, answer the questions and write their own answers. There's no way you come out of that experience and not have a better understanding of what you want to say to clients, and you should even have enough to do your 33-30. You guys know the term in sales, 33-30?
33-30? No.
Your 30-second message, your 3-minute message, and your 30-minute pitch message. That's your 33-30.
Whoa. I don't know if I can do 30 minutes.
A lot of people have trouble getting it down to 30 minutes.
Oh, okay.
Well, I'm the other way.
But in sales, right, you have like your elevator pitch kind of thing. It's a terrible name for it, but elevator pitch kind of thing. And then your sort of 3-minute introduction when someone says, hey, this is Dean. Like, hey, Dean, what do you do? Blah, blah, blah. There's your 3 minutes. And then your 30-minute is your actual pitch.
Would you prefer calling it an escalator pitch?
No, but that reminds me of that great and tragically passed away too soon, Mitch Hedberg. Mitch Hedberg, the comedian.
Sounds familiar.
Right.
I can't remember.
Sure.
Mitch Hedberg is he's one of those he's one of those guys I don't even know how to explain it. He's just really great guy. And one of his jokes is one of the best thing about escalators is you never need an out of order sign. You just need a sign that says temporarily stairs.
I like temporarily stairs.
Yeah.
He also has one that says rice when you're hungry and you want to eat 2,000 or something. I missed that guy. He was a great comedian. So anyway, what we'll do is on the Thursday after, and I'll create the event and then we can start inviting people. And I think I'll provide a handout that people can just like download to go along, sort of like a workbook and fill in stuff. We'll do the whole thing, and there's no way you don't come out of that experience with a clear idea of like who you are and what you do and who you're selling to and what you're going to say to them. And it's free. So, it will not be one-to-one, which costs $400, but instead this one is free, but you do a lot of the work yourself.
Sometimes it just takes a few key ideas.
Sometimes it just takes one person saying one thing that you've always known, but in a different way.
Yep.
It's like, got it. So I figure this is going to be approximately 21 questions with 21 very short stories to illustrate what it is we're aiming for here.
Hey, how do we go from 20 to 21? What's there some special secret question you didn't tell us about?
There's a secret question at the end. Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Now we got it.
There you go.
We'll reach the age of maturity.
Yeah. So we'll do that, like I said, first week of September, first full week of September. And I figure about 90 minutes. You guys, I hope you'll attend to help me.
Of course.
Any questions? And if people want to put something in the comments, then, we can actually answer their questions. Or hopefully answer at least some of them. But make it, more engaging. But we'll just go through, like, here's the workshop, and here's what it covers, and here's what you would answer, and blah, blah, blah. Yada, 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 as they'd say.
Yada.
Sounds good.
I'm a little uncomfortable accepting handouts, though.
Oh, I think you'll get over it.
Okay.
All right. I think that's it. We're 1 minute past our 30-minute target, or we always try to finish in 30 minutes. Any parting words, guys?
Oh, I'm
How's Syracuse?
I'm adjusting to a new time zone. It's actually quite lovely. I'm outside on the deck now because I had to avoid my sister's cat, and I feel so much better now that I'm outside. So
yeah. Oh yeah, that's why.
I haven't been to Syracuse in like years and years. If you should go to Zillow and look at what houses cost there.
Yeah, I know.
Because you're from Southern California, it will blow your mind, right?
Oh, I know.
Houses in Syracuse are.
It's the same thing. Buffalo too. Actually, Buffalo is even better than Syracuse.
Yeah,
and there's plenty of water.
Kendall's even better than all of them.
Kendall's better than all of them.
But you can buy quite a lot.
Little town that nobody knows where it is.
I know.
My wife saw this one a while back. It was a 27-room mansion for like $700,000.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it was enormous, right? It had it was a compound basically. One house, it was crazy. Brick, beautiful house, beautiful inside, beautiful outside. The grounds are beautiful. $750,000, not even.
I mean, as long as you can afford your heating bills, quality of life is amazing, actually.
Yes. And I mean, most of the construction there for the last many decades, those houses tend to be, for instance, I used to live in Florida. Houses in Florida are not energy efficient at all. They're just slapped up as fast as they can slap them up. But houses in the Northeast and all of Canada are built to be they're tighter, right? And energy efficient insulation
R18, R20 something insulation.
Yeah, that's my house.
All right, that's it for this week.
Right.
We didn't have one. When did we not have one? Tuesday, right?
Tuesday.
So we only did 2 this week, but so be it. We fixed Restream's streaming problem. So thank you.
Oh, and they reached out to me too.
Yeah, I saw that they sent you something. Yeah. So thanks for fixing our problem. We'll tell everyone else how to fix it now. Great.
Thank you, Restream.
Yeah, and I'm sure we're taking more credit. Right. And so we'll be back on Tuesday we'll finally do Social Tuesday again.
Social. It's not, by the way, it's not Socialist Tuesday. It's Social Tuesday. Somebody confused that. Yeah.
All right.